Good evening, everybody. It is a delight to welcome all of you to this night's award ceremony. And it is hard to believe that we are already halfway through the annual election program. Tomorrow is Election Day, and so you'll see our celebration of American democracy. We've had a terrific day today. We've had terrific participation. There was part of the simulation where our staff members were told to offer assistance in return for cash. 2 of you succumbed to that offer, and so there will be a remedial class for you 2 tomorrow. We know who you are, okay? Listen to the laughs. They know where they are. Okay. Tonight we are celebrating an award that we call the Joe Baxter Award. Joe Baxter, like so many of you here, was a professional with the D.C. Board of Elections. He then retired after making it possible for the systems to work for the residents of the District of Columbia to vote for president and to vote for mayor. For over 200 years of our history, the citizens of the national capital did not vote for president or their own government. It was all appointed. And even now, we do not have a person elected by the citizens of the District of Columbia representing them with voting rights in the United States Congress. But after a long career with the D.C. Board of Elections, Joe joined IFES, and he started his career as a project manager in Ghana, where he helped write their first election code. He then was engaged in IFES projects from Nicaragua to Nigeria and back again. He mentored a number of the IFES professionals who are here with us as part of the IFES team. He literally inspired hundreds of public servants committed to the democratic process around the world to follow the careers and be the careers and the public servants that all of you are here tonight, who are dedicated to the dream of democracy, the dream of exercising human rights, political rights, and choosing one's own leaders to lead one's country through the free exercise of the vote. He inspired a generation of people, actually a bit more than a generation of people, by his example, by his leadership, by his counseling, by his training. The Baxter Award we created in 2009 in his memory. Each year we present that award to a professional who demonstrates a true commitment to the principles of local ownership, transparency, and sustainability of election administration, just as Joe Baxter did throughout his entire career. I want to recognize as our first speaker tonight in particular, the Ambassador of Sierra Leone, His Excellency Bockari Kortu Stevens, for a few words. Mr. Ambassador, we are so honored you are here. Would you say a few words?
Thank you very much, Madam Assistant Secretary of State, Honorable Linda Thomas-Greenfield, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I feel very proud and honored today, firstly, as a Sierra Leonean, and secondly, representing my president and my country at this auspicious occasion. The woman we are here to honor today is an icon, not only in Sierra Leone, but in Africa as a whole. She has won many outstanding laurels, both in Africa and the world at large. This lady came to preeminence in the 2007 general elections in Sierra Leone. She presided over what was to be a novelty for an opposition party to unseat a government in Africa and do a handing over process that was peaceful and flawless. She was appointed by the sitting government of the day, and I believe it was expected that she will support that government and sing to their tune. But at the end of the voting period, she realized the mood of the people of Sierra Leone for a change. Amidst tremendous amount of pressure, attempts to bribe her, and even threats to her life, she made that wonderful announcement over the radio. After all the bustling of elections is over, it boils down to one person. That person, the returning officer, who in this case was Mrs. Christiana Thorpe, who has to go to the television and radio station, announce and pronounce the leader who was to be the president. The whole country was on knife edge, waiting for this moment. And indeed, around 10 o'clock that morning, she came on the radio to announce that the opposition leader has won the election. The reverberation that occurred sounded throughout the whole country, the length and breadth of Sierra Leone. This was the time that she proved her mettle, that indeed she was a lady of substance and somebody who was prepared to sacrifice her own life, her own security, for the sustenance of democracy in our country. She also made another record in 2012 at the next general election. This was the first time that Sierra Leone had 4 elections in one day. This again was a novelty. It was a Herculean task. We all thought that it was impossible with the illiteracy rate that we had back home. But she was determined that we can do it. We didn't have the luxury of incessant funding. So she decided that those elections should be held in one day. This was done, it was successful, transparent, free and fair by international standards. This is the woman that has been able to do all of these wonderful things for our country. When she was told that she should come for this award, she wanted to come. But then she realized that she had more duties back home. She therefore approached the president and asked that I represent the president at this event. So I come here with the full recognition of my president, that he recognizes the important role this daughter of our soil has done for our country. So once again, it is my pleasure to be here today and to be the first person, it might be sooner than later, to congratulate Madam Christiana Thorpe for this most auspicious award. I thank you very much.
As the ambassador said, Dr. Thorpe is not with us tonight. She is at home, attending to duties, including the important work that since the schools in Sierra Leone are closed, the NGO that she has sponsored and supported all these years is working overtime to keep young girls on track with their educational process. And she was very concerned that if she left her post at this critical time, the work to keep those young minds focused might fall off track. We do have some family members of Dr. Thorpe with us, and what the program is going to be is that first I'm going to introduce, to formally present the award, a great friend of IFES, who I got to know quite well when she was ambassador to Liberia, and IFES was opening its programs there. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who is now the Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of African Affairs at the Department of State. Ambassador or Secretary Greenfield? Secretary? Okay. Is it, what?
Linda?
Linda? Linda's good. Linda's good. Is a 32-year Foreign Service officer who is just a delight to know as Linda and as ambassador and as secretary. She has represented the United States in Switzerland, at the U.S. Mission to the United Nations, Pakistan, Kenya, Gambia, Nigeria, Jamaica, and Liberia. She has served as the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration, and as Deputy Assistant Secretary, and now Assistant Secretary. So, Linda, Madam Secretary, Ambassador, Your Excellency, please take the stage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. And Bill, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And Ambassador Stevens, welcome, and thank you. This is really a privilege for me to address you this evening, and it's a real honor to present the Joe C. Baxter Award to Dr. Christiana Thorpe for her incredible work with the National Election Commission and her decades of service to the people of Sierra Leone, and particularly to young women and girls. Although we regret that we cannot honor her in person and thank her in person, I know we all are so pleased that we could share this occasion with her sister Patricia Thorpe-Finney. I'm delighted that the Baxter Award this year highlights Joe's long commitment to electoral administration in Africa. Dr. Thorpe and IFES have worked tirelessly for decades on behalf of the belief that every citizen deserves the chance to cast his or her vote in a free, fair, and most importantly, peaceful process. When I was the U.S. Ambassador in Liberia, my team and I worked very closely with IFES. The 2011 elections in Liberia could not have happened without their extraordinary efforts. And the important thing about IFES is they stay behind the scenes. They stay behind the scenes and they don't take credit for the great work that they do. They push the Patricias and the Dr. Thorpe, sorry, Patricia, the Dr. Thorpes in the lead. They push the local officials in the lead, and they're behind building capacity and supporting efforts that lead to free, fair, and transparent elections. And as everyone knows here so well, the road to a successful election is a long and bumpy road. It's not just the election day. Due to the dedication and professionalism of Dr. Thorpe and her team at the NEC, the November 2012 elections in Sierra Leone was a tremendous success. Through their work, the candidates, the political parties, the poll workers, the security services, all came together to ensure that the people of Sierra Leone could make their voices heard. Like fair elections, we believe that presidential term limits are fundamental to Africa's demand for democracy. So in order to have presidential term limits, you have to have free and fair elections that allow for those limits to take place. Constitutionally mandated term limits provide a mechanism for holding leaders accountable, and it reduces the tendency toward corruption by ensuring that there is a political turnover. What's more, they give new generations the opportunity to compete for political office and select new leaders. According to surveys across Africa, the vast majority of African people share that view. Burkina Faso, as you know, demonstrated that point quite clearly last week, protesting President Compaore's attempt to change term limits that ultimately caused him to resign. But now the tough work begins in Burkina. Burkina's constitution requires elections to take place in the next 60 to 90 days, and that's going to be challenging under the best of circumstances, and it's going to be even more challenging given the uncertain situation that is taking place in Burkina Faso today. Democracy is an ongoing living process that must be nurtured and tended in order for it to thrive. That's as true in the United States as it is in Sierra Leone and around the world. It requires the commitment of candidates, political parties, civil society, and citizens and government officials at all levels to step up and be leaders that their people deserve. Dr. Thorpe embodies that commitment, more notably for the incredibly challenging environment she works in. It is an incredibly tough job to be an election commissioner or to support the election commission, as you heard from Ambassador Stevens, and especially in countries that are still building and developing their democracies. Free and fair elections are the goal, but they're not an easy task to achieve, and particularly if you have a ruling party that thinks it should be in power forever. As you know, this summer was a very exciting one for us here in Washington. For those of us who are passionate about U.S.-Africa relations, I just want to mention that we held the first ever U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. It was an incredible event, 3-day dialogue between African heads of state and the U.S. President and other leaders from across our government and the private sector, and we were extremely pleased with the summit, and we've received very positive feedback from African leaders. We also brought 500 of Africa's most talented and dynamic young people to the United States to participate in the Mandela Washington Fellowship, which is a flagship program of President Obama's Young African Leaders Initiative. These are Africa's next generation of business leaders, of educators, and human activists. They are among the next Christiana Thorpe. But this program is not just a drop in the bucket because nearly 50,000 young people applied last year, and we're on track to have an equally impressive number this year. Our cooperation on everything in Africa, from AGOA to the Partnership to Combat Illicit Finance to the newly announced Security Governance Initiative, to name just a few, indicates to me how strong the U.S.-Africa partnership will continue to be. Furthermore, the talent and energy of young people like our YALI fellows truly keep me motivated and confident that Africans are fully equipped to find solutions to the challenging problems facing them today. I would be remiss tonight if I did not mention the most pressing challenge, and that is the devastating Ebola outbreak currently facing Sierra Leone, as well as Liberia and Guinea and other nations in West Africa. Although we're beginning to see a slight improvement in the case rate in Liberia, Sierra Leone is seeing an exponential growth in cases, and Guinea has a doubling in cases every 30 to 40 days. The United States has been involved in the response since the outbreak began with USAID and CDC experts on the ground, and to date we've provided $360 million in humanitarian efforts to the affected countries. We have committed more than 3,000 U.S. troops, up to 17 treatment units, a regional logistics hub, training programs, and up to $1 billion in funds allocated to the Defense Department. Yet, even with U.S. efforts, President Obama made clear that this epidemic is a global challenge that demands a global response. We're urging our partners in the international community, the United Nations, the African Union, to meet the resources needed in terms of money, international health workers, supplies, and each day we as a global community, each day that we delay our response is one day too many. None of us should be surprised that Dr. Thorpe and her foundation is fully engaged in the fight against Ebola. This is in addition to her new initiative to combat sexual malpractice at Sierra Leone's higher education institutions. So if any of you had any concerns that Dr. Thorpe's retirement from government service might lead her to slow down or take it easy, you may rest assured that nothing is further from the truth. So let me close by again directing my thanks, my sincere thanks to IFES for this invitation and giving me the opportunity to share in Dr. Thorpe's award. In fact, it's so wonderful to be part of this because, as you know, every day we're looking at the news and all we hear is the bad news about Ebola and the impact that Ebola is having on the countries in Africa. But to be here to share this positive event with Dr. Thorpe and her family is most rewarding for me. So Dr. Thorpe, and I know she's not here with us today, I want her to accept our thanks. I want her family to accept our admiration for everything she has done on behalf of Sierra Leone and young women all over the world. And so now I would like to take this opportunity to present to Patricia Thorpe-Finney, if you can come forward, this wonderful award on behalf of IFES for Dr. Thorpe's amazing work in supporting free, fair, and transparent elections in Sierra Leone, but also in recognition of her great work and contribution to Sierra Leone's future. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. On behalf of Dr. Thorpe, I want to say a big thank you to IFES. She practices what you preach. Her voice for the people. She believes that every Sierra Leonean should have a voice, rich, poor, educated or none, and she went from door to door. Every single Sierra Leonean was taught how to vote, and every single Sierra Leonean knew the importance of voting. So because of IFES being the support body, she was able to do this. So we want to thank IFES very much for all their support. And we want to thank the organizers and everybody here for believing in her. She believes in transparency. She has faith. She believes in goodwill. She works extremely hard. And I was fortunate to be there when she was going from door to door. I went with her. We went to every state, every district, every village for people to know that they have a right. And their right to vote is their voice as to how the country should be run. So on behalf of Dr. Thorpe, I want to thank you so much. And her foundation, she's really working hard to get everybody educated and poor people to have food and clothing. So she cannot be here today, but she sends her love and she promises that as soon as everything is cleared, she will come personally and meet with the IFES organizers and say thank you. So thank you so much. Thank you for everything.
We have a brief video message from Dr. Thorpe. It will be about 5 minutes. Are we ready to cue the message? Thank you, Dr. Thorpe. If the three of you could come up on stage for one surprise announcement. In recognition of Dr. Thorpe's dedication, IFES decided to award to the Forum for African Women Educationalists, the NGO that Dr. Thorpe founded for the empowerment of girls and women through gender-responsive education, a special award. And everyone has agreed to be part of this presentation. So a gift of $10,000 to Dr. Thorpe's. I have two final announcements. Yes, I agree. I have two final announcements. The first is that, as you've noticed, we've had representatives from 4 great companies involved in the election administration business. Those are Emptor Election, Land Trade Global Supplies Limited, Seidel, and Smartmatic. Now, I want everyone to know that just those folks, like all of you, will be leaving over the course of the next day or so. So we have a fully transparent, fully public display. Everyone can talk to representatives of the company that are involved with us tonight in making some of this program possible, and we are grateful for their support. But don't let them have to carry their brochures home, folks. All right? And don't let the opportunity to have a fully transparent, full conversation with these great representatives be lost. So please take some time and talk to our important sponsors and vendors that we work with around the world. Final 2 points. Number one, I want to recognize and thank Fred Firth for his dedication to our cause. Fred has been on the board of directors of IFES for almost 15 years. Yes, Fred, I'm talking about you. Stand up so we can recognize you. And finally, I want to thank all of you and all of you for the work that we do and the commitment we share to trying to make the exercise of political rights and the determination of who our country's leaders will be a human right. And that is a cause that we are all united in, election after election after election after election. So enjoy the rest of the evening. We'll see everyone tomorrow morning before we go out and watch Americans vote. Thank you all. Good evening.